podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
Welcome to No Question About That Daily. I'm Ed, today with Adam, and we are talking about United's squad evolution with about 24 hours to go before the window slams shut. How are you doing, Adam?
I'm good. I'm hoping, by the end of the weekend, this episode isn't terribly dated, but I just don't think we have that much flexibility to move. But yeah, it's an exciting time, but we've also got to temper our expectations. Yeah, weird moment.
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, of course, everyone wants Big Sir Jim to pull out his large wallet and splurge it into the transfer market. It's not going to happen. He couldn't do that even if he wanted to with the PSR requirements, and we've hit that cap every single year. This might be the first year that is not entirely based on loans. I don't think people get that. It's interesting. I tried to seed some of this into the ecosystem to try and explain what's happening here. But, all right, so we're going to talk about the evolution of the squad with the caveat that there could be some drama in the last day or two of the transfer window. It closes on Monday, does it? Monday, 11 o'clock p.m. UK time. All right, yeah. So, we're a little 24 hours and a little bit before that by the time this comes out. But I think we can probably guesstimate some of the likely moves, and we'll think about a little further evolution down the line, what it's what's likely to happen and what Amorim might want and need. So, overall, what's the state of play, do you reckon?
Well, I mean, just in terms of the window, I feel like that Garnacho buzz is sort of gone unless Chelsea are going to bid something ridiculous. I know there was a report out of France that was talking about 95 million euro rated Alejandro Garnacho. I just don't see it. I mean, they haven't entered the fray for Matthias Tell, who's a cheaper alternative, a similar profile. You and I spoke about pre-pod about shiny new toy syndrome for United fans with Tell, but I'm sure we'll get into that. But it feels like the only substantial departure that could bring in a fee eventually is Marcus Rashford. Still waiting on Barcelona. Aston Villa have popped up today, but doesn't feel like England's really a chance. And then obviously it seems like United are engaging with the intermediaries to try and create some sort of deal for Casemiro, who's either going to be sitting on the bench for 300k a week or maybe find an alternative at Roma, which has been rumoured. I just don't really see how the wage bill fits unless we're paying half the freight, unless, say, a Turkish club would have come in, because you and I have spoken about previously about the financiers they've got with the top clubs there. Maybe he could join up with Ole at Besiktas, but they don't seem to have the same sort of pull of a Fenerbahce or Galatasaray financially.
Not right now. Yeah.
No. Yeah. He sort of actually spoke about it in the Europa League press conference. They just don't have the sort of money. But it's interesting. United have a squad of players that could fill out, your 22, 23 players, but there's still all these holes. It doesn't feel like we really have any right wing backs who are a long-term solution. In a game where we dominate the ball, you can switch Ahmad there. We're signing Dorgu, but we still need another left wing back after that. I'm not sure what you think of what the state of play is.
Yeah, I think there's quite a bit of evolution needed. 12th, 13th, something like that. Can't remember exactly, whatever, anywhere that far down the table. Yeah, right. But it's been a bad season following a bad season. And so that would tell you that there's a fair amount of evolution needed. It's still something of a Frankenstein squad, obviously mostly constructed for Erik ten Hag at great expense. There's a substantial number of players that are underperforming their fee and or wages and or expectation. Now, there has to be some expectation on Amorim to improve players. He cannot and will not be able to just use the checkbook to solve all his problems, go off and buy half the sporting squad or whatever. And surely he will have known that when he came in. And so there's going to have to be a mixed strategy here. I think that the overall big picture is there will have to be a substantial evolution in this squad because they've just underperformed, and you cannot underperform for nigh on 2 years and then say, yeah, it's a good squad. Right? It's just there may be other circumstances involved in injuries last season, drop off in form of major players this season. Like there's some extenuating circumstances, but generally speaking, poor quality squad, fairly unbalanced, and doesn't quite fit the profile of players Amorim wants. On the other side of that is thinking about the long term, and this is the whole point about bringing in sporting directors and so on, that you think about the evolution of your squad, both the players you've got, the younger players you have, and the pathway you have to bring into the squad, and what you do in the market with the long-term view in mind, that whatever the coach is or whoever the coach is, that you're able to manage evolution from coach to coach in a sensible way, and it doesn't have to be 8, 9, 10 or 20 players as it was with Ten Hag every time a new coach comes in with £400 million worth of net spend, as Eric did, and the pursuant bloating of wage budget and so on and so on and so on, right? So I think that's the kind of overall big picture. We're looking at what the evolution is. The finances, until you get Anthony, Sancho, Maguire maybe, although they've obviously kept him for another year, which changes the PSR requirement on that, and other expensive earners and or fees, or Casemiro particularly, out of the club to completely change the wage structure and total budget. And I think the structure is an important one because it's quite top heavy. Then it's going to be hard to do much more than pursue the strategy that they appear to be pursuing right now, which is younger, relatively cheaper players, especially cheaper on wages and relatively cheaper on on the transfer fee. And that's your overall strategy. So I think that's a big picture. And I guess we can talk about like what that means for different like types of positions, because there's going to be a prioritization here. Like you can't look down the list as some people would do, as Paul Scholes did on Instagram the other day, and like fire everyone in the squad and bring a whole bunch of new people in, right? One, they're not all going to succeed, so we'll be back in the same position again. Two, we don't have the budget for it. And three, given that we're not in the Champions League, we would be buying Europa League level players when you do that, right? It doesn't make an awful lot of sense. So anyway, what do you think about the goalkeepers? Interesting situation we've spoken about before. Bayindir not in greatest form. Onana not in the greatest form. Bayindir appears to be the cup goalkeeper, but I'd imagine he's got ambitions that are greater than playing 3 or 4 games a season. But I think it's not going to be anywhere near the priority for Amorim.
Yeah, it's sort of my wild card for the summer. Like just based on what the rest of Andre Onana's season looks like, has obviously had nervy moments. But what's been interesting as well for Bayindir is how he's sort of regenerated his value over the past couple of games. You know, he only cost €5 million from Fenerbahce. So from an asset perspective, you've really regenerated that value, and you've turned that into, you could sell him to somewhere on the continent and quadruple your buying price. So even if you decide to keep Onana, you might be able to just turn that player over with Bayindir and try and do that again, bring in another competitive backup, because I think the thing with the squad, so you've got your island misfit toys. That's what I sort of see the squad as right now. So you've got to figure out, for me, who your holding players are, who can sit in a role for 12 months, whether it's, you know, Matthias de Ligt is like the central centre-back, right centre-back role, I think is well covered between Yoro, Maguire, de Ligt, Mazraoui. You can sort of make do with that. And then you've got to figure out if Lisandro Martinez, now I know we're talking about the goalkeepers and I'll go back to that, with Lisandro Martinez and the idea of Luke Shaw, do you have, or an Aiden Heaven as well coming in, do you have that covered? So for me, yeah, with Onana, it's like, can you survive another 12 months? His errors too costly versus what he does do, which we know earlier in the season, he was, I think, as high as second in expected goals prevented. Now, I know that the mistakes have eaten into that, and obviously, I really think with goalkeepers more than anything else, it's the "what have you done for me lately" principle.
Yeah,
my utopia is Diogo Costa. I just don't think that's a this summer sort of proposition. But if they were going to spend money, that's the sort of place I think they'd look. He's the sort of goalkeeper I think who's eventually going to end up at Real Madrid, or, which would be sort of worst case scenario for me, is replacing Edison at Manchester City.
Yes, I don't know whether they'll ship Edison out this summer. Obviously, Alisson's going, but they bought Mamamashvili. Didn't get that one out right at all, but yeah, close. Awesome.
Better than me.
Yeah. So Costa, they could have bought before he was available. They could have paid the price. It wasn't much more. I mean, I think the release clause was 60 million euros, so they could have bought him. They went for a niner instead. That was the choice. I don't think they'll do anything on the main goalkeeper this season, and they may look at topping out the backup, or they probably need a third. Tom Heaton's out of contract. He's on quite a substantial contract for what is basically a training goalkeeper.
Yeah, $2.5 million a year.
Yeah. United extremely well stocked in younger goalkeepers, whether one of them would want to be the third or whether it's or like part third, part training, part loan next season, we'll see. So I suspect that's the option. When we come to the central defenders, I mean, you basically preface that United are really well stocked. So the question is, like, if you're picking players for different positions, you've got Euro and Mazraoui that would fill the right-hand channel. I really do like Mazraoui much more in the right-sided centre-back. I think it's just a better fit than wing-back. De Ligt and Maguire for the central. De Ligt can obviously cover at right. I don't like him there as much. I'd like to see Euro spend more time in that role. And
not against
Martinez,
pacey players, yeah. We've seen the scenarios where he can play that.
And his passing's not that great. And given that is the channel out, the wider centre-backs. And then Martinez, assuming that we think he will get back to his best, and there are signs of it recently. He's definitely the out ball, isn't he? He's actually the player who's carrying the ball.
The first 25 minutes against RCSB, it was him with the balls over the top. Yeah. They were pressing so high up. He was playing those balls over the top for Kobbie Mainoo. And yeah, we've seen better. I think a little bit credit wasn't given with Martinez in terms of the recovery from his knee injury. I think sometimes we're seeing with Kobbie Mainoo, sometimes we underestimate how long it probably feels for their bodies that part of the body to feel right, even though they're back playing. Yeah.
But
I was wondering
if United didn't buy any defenders, they'd have 6 for 3 positions there. Euro, Mazraoui, De Ligt, Maguire, Martinez, and Shaw. And that's like if you were prioritising areas of the squad to evolve this summer coming, definitely won't do anything in the winter. I don't think you'd prioritise that, given that you assume that Lindelof and Evans both leave the club, right? Both out of contract. You're not going to renew either of them. I mean, we haven't seen them for weeks. Is Lindelof
unless Johnny Evans goes into that Tom Huddleston sort of reserves coaching role, that's the only reason I can imagine him still having a playing role. He only came to the club to do his badges, and that was 2 years ago now.
That's right. It'd be remarkable if he signed for a third season, wouldn't it?
I thank you for your service, and him retiring is the expected outcome, especially with I think he's got a back injury now at his age. I don't envy that. Being a similar age myself. So, I was actually wondering, just quickly on that, what you sort of think is Lenny Yoro's long-term position is. I'd actually like to see him trialled in the central role next to Mazraoui with Martinez. I think that would be a really interesting setup, just because we sort of know what we've got in De Ligt in both those roles, but we have to think beyond Maguire. Like, Maguire's still very good, had a very good season, but we did see against Rangers, errors can still happen. He can still get caught out. He got caught under the ball. I know people talked about a foul, but unfortunately he just got bodied. He just positioned himself wrongly. So I was just wondering what you thought about Yoro's long-term position.
I mean, the reason why I like him on the right is his pacey channel defending, and given that is...
his timing in the tackle.
Yeah, that can be the weak spot in this system, where there can be gaps behind the wing back. So I like the fact that he can cover there with his pace. He's comfortable on the ball. He's not a brilliant passer. It'd be interesting if we start to see more of the passing out of the wide central defenders, which was very common at Sporting, and then the central defender pushing into midfield. Like, as the rest of the team pushes up, then the central defender makes that extra body in the build-ups. We've seen a bit of that from Harry Maguire, and he's quite comfortable. As long as he's not under loads of pressure and has to act quickly, he's quite comfortable doing that. So, yeah, they could well do. We haven't seen it yet with Yoro.
He's been quite protected, which I think has been good. Yeah. I think he's been eased in well. Obviously struggled against Southampton, but was in the lineup next time out. I really like how he's being managed. I think we sort of saw the same with Toby Collier after his injury. He wasn't thrown straight back in the fray, a couple of substitute appearances, really impressed. And then it seems like it's given him the confidence to do what he did, and hopefully there was no injury out of his shoulder problem on Thursday.
Yeah, I don't think it was a big problem, but it seems to have been something. But yeah, I mean, he came to the club with a metatarsal they knew was going to break. I mean, it's a very odd situation.
I did like that report came out of PSG as well. I think that was a little bit of a saving face.
When you buy a club for PR purposes, you need to save face, don't you? The wing back areas, I mean, we've bought 2 left wing backs. Right, Dorgu will get solved in the next day or so. We assume there's not a last minute problem, just paperwork, visa, I guess.
They wanted him for the relegation game overnight.
And then Leon, the 17-year-old's coming from Paraguay.
Comes once he turns 18. It's an option. I think that's the sort of market value, market opportunities we're looking at as well, right?
Yeah.
So you're just hoping those young signings pan out. I actually like the approach. I know it's been framed as it's turning into farming out young players, sort of the Chelsea-style model. Unfortunately, football is a business, and we have not played the business side well enough. So you need to sign young players in the hope that they either pop or you sell them on for a small profit and try again.
Yeah.
That's what the youth academy is anyway.
Well, no, absolutely. It is, but you just have to do it in a respectful way. I think where that football clubs are pushing boundaries, where they sign 13-year-old boys from Sierra Leone and they don't make it and they just dump them out on the streets at age 17 or whatever. Not far off kind of modern day slavery, right? That isn't acceptable. If they're doing this the right way and they
it's setting up pathways, but it's also a business aspect. Yeah.
And we've seen maybe the better analogies. Brighton play that sort of secondary markets extremely well. I mean, if they sell Mitoma this weekend for 90 million euros to Saudi Arabia.
They turned down the first bid that was, I think, 65 plus add-ons. Was just like, God, imagine having the luxury. Could never be my club.
I mean, they know what their model is and they do it very well, right? So Dorgu, Leon, I guess sure it will still be an option if he's ever fit, but we can't bet on that, or you can't plan for that. It'd be ridiculous to plan for that. Malacia will surely go. And I assume they're going to try and find a loan for him this weekend. If they don't, well, he'll get a few games here and there. He's been hauled off. He's had 5 games since he's come back from injury, and he's been hauled off at halftime 4 times. He doesn't look like he's up to speed.
No, he just looks like physically it's going to be a long road back thing.
Yeah.
And he was always sort of, without being disrespectful, he's always sort of shaped up as a backup. And when you're already in that sort of frame and struggling with the layoff that he's had, it's a long road. So I think whether it's Benfica, which I think rumoured in the last 24 hours, you try and again regenerate that value and set up something for the summer.
And his both wages and PSR costs are tiny anyway, so can almost not lose there. It'll be very minor if they do. And then Harry Amos, I presume, I mean, they're worried about his physicality, so a loan next season would make a lot of sense rather than trying to push him back into the first team picture. I presume, but we'll see how they feel about that after the summer and the summer tour, because it won't happen till then.
Yeah. I think it's either, Sekou Kone is in sort of a similar mold where you're either going to finish this season playing under 21s just to get used to the physicality and the just English football in general, and also adapt into the country in Kone's case, or you're going to go for a loan in the championship, which just seems to make sense.
On the other side, Dalot, I mean, I don't have a problem with him being at the club, really. I think he's multifunctional. He's like a 7 out of 10 in all aspects of his game. Well, 6.5, 7. Like, he's not brilliant at anything, but he's not dreadful, except for when he completely forgets to cover his man at the back post, which appears to be a particular blind spot of his. I don't like him on the left-hand side at all. He's always inverted.
You can't invert.
But there will need to be another right wing-back, I mean, surely, in order to have another, just for an option there. I think we've seen enough of Mazraoui in that position to understand that it's not really the right option, unless we're saying that Ahmad can fulfill some of that role, and that's enough with Dalot and Ahmad on the right-hand side.
Well, look, we've seen the David Ornstein report in the last several hours to recording about Kenda coming in for a summer move in the range of 40+ million euros. I think that's the sort of thing that makes sense. I think you can go with a more traditional right-footed right wing back, and then you'll have someone like Kenda, someone with a more attacking option, particularly with the issues we've seen when we do play 2 fullbacks in that role. It just doesn't work. It completely tips off the balance of the system. There's no link, but we can't seem to progress the ball. And I think so much is relied on those wing backs to get up, push up and provide attacking width, and also those cutbacks, which is so important to Ruben Amorim's system.
Yeah, and we're barely seeing that at all.
We actually finally saw a bit in the second half on Thursday again with
Garnacho.
Yeah. It seems like there was a really coachable moment from Garnacho, just seeing how he played in that game. So that was really promising. But yeah, we'll see. I think unlocking those two positions will just help make the system make more sense.
Yeah, Kender's an interesting one. He's barely played any games at all. I mean, obviously, it's not a surprise in that I think everyone around Europe knows this guy's brilliant. And if we're leveraging the relationship with Amorim to make that happen at a reasonable fee, then great. I mean, Sporting have been very good at selling for huge amounts of money. So let's see whether it really is 40, because if that doubles, then that would be a much bigger question. In the centre of midfield, like, how do you feel about this? Because Ugarte, I like a lot of what he does. I don't like his offensive capabilities at all, really. I think it's very limited, but 50-odd million pounds, I don't think they'll prioritise that there, unless they want a backup. And the question would be, is Collier the backup there? Like, has he done enough?
There's your placeholders right there, right?
Yeah.
Like,
I mean,
for that deeper, if you just want like an efficient destroyer, ground eater, you've got that role in the short term. I'm sort of trying to figure out, when I put it together pre-show, I was trying to figure out, so if we're considering Bruno Fernandes, like I did the lineup builder, right? And in central midfield, I had Bruno instead of in one of the 10 roles, because I think that second central midfielder actually becomes more of an attacking midfielder when that central centre-back pushes up into midfield. So when you're in possession, he's not a traditional central midfielder. He just has to work hard defensively, which Bruno has proven to do. It's been pretty impressive, actually. But yeah, I think you have to use at least Ugarte and Collier as a placeholder for another 12 months. Both have room for development. I think Ugarte has a real place in games where we don't dominate possession as much, and you need...
For sure, yeah.
Because he's just so insane off the ball defensively. I think he has a definite place, but if he can't expand his passing, then you have to ask the bigger question, who is either Bruno's partner in the short term or who's Bruno's heir in the long term as well? Mm-hmm. So that's a question for me in the summer, because I'm not 100% sure on Mason Mount. Casemiro and Eriksen aren't really under consideration for me beyond the summer. So
no, I think
they have to bring someone in.
Yeah. I mean, there's £500,000 worth of wages per week in Casemiro and Eriksen. So yeah, they will thank you for your service and off you go. Casemiro's harder because there's a PSR implication with him having a couple of years left on his contract, so we can't exactly give them away for free without taking an impairment charge, which just reduces our budget, right? So again, another one that the internet does not understand, that if you just give them away for free, you reduce your budget.
One of my least favorite things about angry yelling transfer stuff on the internet is like, get rid of this player because he's crap, but I want this price for him. Like Rashford's been a classic example of this. Like, sell him for however many, 80, 70, 60, 50 million, but you think he's shit. So how is someone gonna pay for that? And it's the same with Casemiro. We can't just terminate his contract. It's just not that simple. People don't want to wrap their head around the financing. Anyway, I had to get that off.
I know.
My chest.
No, actually terminating, because someone said that to me the other day, and terminating Casemiro's contract, you terminated it today. It's a £50 million cost. So, yeah, and that's partly the money you owe him and partly the PSR charge that you would, the impairment charge. Yeah, it's absolute madness. That's why it's just really hard. And it's not like I knew he was going to be shit when he came in. But if you go back, when he came in, I was like, I'm worried about this one because
we talked about it in the transfer pod last week.
Yeah. Years 3 and 4, you're going to be really screwed. Anyway, Collier Ugarte, if he's comfortable, and Amorim's been praised Collier a lot, said he's developed a lot. I think the injuries held him back. He's probably a year behind where you'd want to be. Bruno Fernandes was really singing his praises as well, saying he's going to be a top player. If the players are saying that, maybe we should take note. The interesting one is on Mainoo. I don't want to over-egg the fact that he played in a more forward role. I like that they tried that because I do think his ability to play in those wall passes and those tight spaces adds a lot there. He's obviously, he would be a different type of less penetrative player than, say, Garnacho or Rashford or that kind of penetration. I think you want a mix of those. I was a bit worried when it looked like we were selling Rashford and Garnacho, because suddenly you've got a lot of players who want the ball into feet and no one wants to play into space at all. And that would, for me, look like United playing in this U shape in front of the opposition for hours upon end without
who are we going
doing
to come back
anything
to?
with it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, like, a nice balanced mix there would be very nice. But if Fernandes mixes between 8 and 10, I don't hate it. If it's the right kind of game.
It's a case for both of them, right? Like, I think you give Minu the case, the chance to develop into either. I think right now, with the profile of the team, it makes sense to give him a chance at 10, just because of the players around him, how he combines with Ahmad and Bruno's been really interesting, and it's going to be really interesting once we've got an actual capable player on the left flank to interplay with them and provide some width, which the team hasn't had, so teams will be able to defend quite narrowly against us. So, I think you can consider them either 8 or 10.
Yeah, Ugarte, Collier, Mainu, they may want one more midfielder. I think it wouldn't surprise me if they bought a number 8. And given that no one has ever tried Mason Mount at 8, seems to have all the skills, but clearly every single manager has never done that. So they must see something we don't, or I don't.
Is it simply the physical requirement?
Yeah, it could be that. Yeah,
I just think it's that.
Yeah,
I would imagine whether it's this is just purely speculative, but I would imagine based on his medical testing and stuff, they know his body can't handle the high intensity of that role. Whereas like the forward pressing is much more suited to him.
Amorim kind of called out Mainu he said he struggled with the defensive side, which is interesting because if you look at his numbers, blocks and interceptions and tackles and stuff, they're off the chart. It's the progressive passing that's the problem. But clearly Amorim is seeing something in that role, which really should be a linking role, right? Alongside Ugarte.
I've always seen it that they don't combine well, whether they don't understand each other well yet. They seem to get caught because I think it's mainly, for me, it's because Ugarte attacks the space. And so the space in behind him when he steps forward is never closed by Mainu. I think it's more just their collaboration. I think that's more of a problem than something individually. It's him probably just understanding where he needs to be and when. Doesn't seem to have any problems with like work rate or actual defensive actions.
Yeah. All right. So further forward, we've talked about a few of these. It looks like Garnacho is staying. I hope so. The reports today suggested that Amorim would like to keep him, and it would be mad just to swap him for another young player. I don't understand that strategy at all.
I like the way he's responded the past few games. It's shown coachability.
Feels like a coachable player.
Yeah, I think that seems to be what Amorim's good at, is getting a young group and moulding them. It seems to be what he's done with Sporting and did with Casapia and things like that. He seems to be hard on his players, but they seem to want to run through walls for him. So he seems to have nailed that man management aspect. I just think he's still understanding what he can do with his team tactically and what their ceiling is in certain aspects. And he just doesn't have all the tools he needs to work with. So people can say, I've seen people saying, what phase is he in now? But it's just going to be an up and down process. I mean, we know that. But yeah, it's been really good with Garnacho.
So let's make the assumption he stays. Fernandes is obviously going to stay. Ahmad, obviously, we don't need to question any of these. Mount's a question mark for me, like what we do with him. There's obviously a lot.
Same as Shaw, right?
Yeah.
You have him and you can't really move him on as much as people.
Well, sure, you probably could, right?
You think so?
Well, I think someone would
England
pay
international.
Yeah, and brilliant when he's fit. It would likely be a small or no fee if you did it, if you could find a way. And there's no PSR cost, obviously. He's been at the club forever. And
it's do a testimonial.
It's just the wages, yeah. Mount's much harder because obviously big fee creates a problem when you try
30 million left on PSR, 200K thereabouts a week. I mean,
yeah, I think
you've just got to give it another year.
Yeah, you're gonna have to suck it up with him and see whether he can
try and get his body right.
If Kenda comes in, then that adds an extra body in the right-hand side. He's multifaceted. He's played deeper and further forward, interesting, 17, 18, whatever he'll be by the summer. question mark over how many games you'd like him to play and all of that, and come to a new country. So let's not expect LA straight away.
Same with Dorgu.
Yeah. Well, no, absolutely with Dorgu. He's definitely raw.
I wanted to ask you about that. I spoke to you about this pre-pod with the Dorgu signing and sort of the approach they've taken with young players. Obviously, they've gone for a under 23 sort of profile in the market. What's your sort of philosophy for how you want the team to be built? Are you looking for, like for me, what I can see is young players who you either give a couple of years. If it doesn't work, you can move them on because they have reasonable wages, not much left on PSR. But then you have market opportunities like Matthias Tal. Is that the sort of philosophy you want them to take? No more big shiny toys from big clubs?
I think it has to be, because there's double cost of signing established stars who are in Champions League qualifying sides. Unless you can extract brilliant players from mid-table clubs, which you can't do in England because even the bottom clubs have like way too much money. You can do from other markets. But let's assume that the shiny toys, established Champions League players, because United are out of the Champions League every other year, or worse, in fact, you have to pay them a premium to account for the fact that they'll take a deduction in wages when you're not in the Champions League. So that's where you get these massive fat contracts from. And plus you pay established star fees. I think it's really, really hard in our current financial situation and where we are in the evolution of the squad to do that, much as we might like to buy a brilliant player for each of those positions. If there wasn't a PSR problem and Sir Jim was minded to cash in his 40 billion euros worth of equity he has in Ineos and spend it all on making United brilliant, great, awesome. But that is not the world we live in. And so I think young players who have very, very high ceiling and ideally, before everyone realizes they have a really, really high ceiling, that's the hard one, because you are still going to spunk 50, 60, 70 million on very young players if you're not very careful about how you spend it. And I don't know what the answer is here because, it's Matt Judge going around still doing the negotiation. They appear to have got Dorgu for a reasonable fee. It'll be reasonable when we know how good he is, right?
It doesn't seem like it. It seems like Wilcox has stepped more into that and Vival is doing the identification and then Wilcox is doing acquisition?
No, Wilcox is doing the operational piece as well as the technical piece. He seems to have taken on a lot of the mandate from Dan Ashworth. Matt Judge comes into the final negotiations to do the commercial piece. Yeah. And Vival's the recruitment specialist that's got a team of people he's now working with. If that all works seamlessly, great, awesome. If you identify talent and you understand squad evolution, this is where the sporting director is supposed to do it. Maybe that is what Wilcox is doing now.
Yeah,
squad evolution.
Traction with Ashworth.
Yeah. Squad evolution, transfer specialist, negotiation, get the right price, understanding all the contract situations and what you want the balance of costs to be in certain parts of the squad as well, which I haven't quite got right. As I said, quite top heavy in terms of the balance of how much they pay people. Also, just shit as well, like paying loads of people loads of money that are not very good. So yeah, I think philosophically that makes sense for the next 2 years. You get a lot of the PSR costs out because Anthony is still going to be a problem. Like he's going away for the next 6 months, but that's just a loan to try and get some market value.
Yeah, it's just him out the door.
Yeah. Unless you get 30 million for him in the summer, there's an impairment charge. And he's not even on massive wages. So it's hard to see a win from that one, really. So I think while you get all of this out of the system, it's a couple of years of rebuild with these younger players. Then, assuming United with younger players can develop into a Champions League qualifying side, it's an if, but assuming we can do that, and Amorim won't be around if he can't do it, then in 2 years' time, once we get the broadcast money back in the kitty and some of this legacy PSR costs are out of the way, United will have quite a lot of free cash flow to go spend on shiny toys.
Especially they've attached those sell-on clauses to a couple of the sales, Mason Greenwood, Alvaro, Fernandez. So if those players end up getting mega moves, Greenwood's top scorer in League One at the moment, Carreras or Fernandez or whatever I'm supposed to call him, gets a major move, which sort of seems like he will because he has a release clause that's pretty decent. And I don't think United are going to re-sign him. I think that's more of a, like a fan casting sort of moment, same with Angel Gomez in Lille. Then there's additional money coming in the kitty. But I like the one upside of United's financial position. It forces them into position, or a strategy that they should be taking anyway, that they sort of need to start taking. So hopefully it'll pay off. But
yeah,
they have to stick with Amorim now. That's one of the things I like about it. People can say, oh, he'll be gone in 6 months. They won't stick by him. They've got any choice but to see it out. And whether they're forced to or whether they genuinely believe it, I think it's the best approach.
Yeah, because the alternative is just, Armageddon. Last one on the strikers, which kind of comes to our point about signing young players. They did that with the strikers, with Højlund and Xerxes. It hasn't worked out yet. Højlund appears to have regressed, honestly, this season. I see a lot of things from him I don't like.
A lot of bad habits. I think I don't know if we've spoken about this before, but it's like everyone's spoken about it. It's the wrestling. One of the funny thing about Kobe Mainoo's goal was he was wrestling back into his guy. So by the time the ball's going in the net, he's on his ass.
Yeah.
So that was funny. Yeah, confidence seems to be shot. The problem with signing young strikers is if you don't have a placeholder, who's gonna be their relief pitcher or anything? Who's gonna?
That's it.
And that's what I think that's what they have to look for now, because you're pretty well in on Højlund. That's 72 million. That's 2 years of PSR only gone. So what's that off the top of my head? That's 12, 15.
Yeah.
That's still 48, 44 million on the PSR. Xerxes, more reasonable. I think they probably. I don't know. One of them.
There would be a market for him. Yeah.
Yeah. Particularly like what you said pre-show about Cheetah Obi coming in and getting minutes next season, seeing how the tour goes, going from there. I think you have to bring in a placeholder where it's Victor Osimhen, who's like, do you sign a player who's just more goal focused, even if they like sort of what Erling Haaland does, right? Or Chris Wood, where they don't contribute a lot outside of scoring, but what they know how to do is score goals. And in the short term, you just swallow it as like, we have to sacrifice something, just get more goals. Because
Chris Wood didn't even used to score goals. It's some kind of Kiwi miracle, that one. Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think Højlund's very hard to move on and get a benefit from it. So you'd be paying to let him leave. And
do you loan him for 12 months? I don't know, because no
one's going to pay the fee. You'd be asking for
it feels like the beginning at the end.
Yeah, it'd be a £15 million fee. Loan fee, it's really expensive. So it's easier to move on if they decide he's not the right fit. He really only seems to do well as a substitute when he's asked to start a game. He's been dreadful every single time. There's stuff I like about him, but he just clearly doesn't have the whole package.
Yeah, do you just sell him for 30 million euros and write it off?
I would be tempted to. Yeah,
because Italy will have suitors.
Yeah,
so it'll be something to consider.
And obviously, always talk about Gyökeres. I see that one as highly risky, as much as I like some of what he offers. Brilliant channel runner, scores all kinds of goals, strong, fast. That would appear to be, on the face of it, the complete package as a modern number 9. He has absolutely never done it outside of the context of Sporting. So it feels that just feels really risky given his age. 5-year contract. 5+1, he'll be in his 30s by the time that runs out, and a 60, 70 million pound fee. That is not the strategy we were just outlining.
My whole thing, and I was saying this and thinking about this when we were doing our top 5 worst transfers, I want to see the scouting network in action. I want to see the sort of players that can throw up that sort of shortlist. Like, yes, you can sign Kenda from Sporting because he's a long-term prospect and more of the fit than Gyökeres is. I know Gyökeres isn't old by any measure, but I want to see what that can come up with. So who can you find who's going to grow into something more, or just someone who's an undervalued asset?
Yeah. Yes.
That's what I want.
Yeah. And I think that's right. I would not be surprised to see Xerxes leave in the summer and another young player come in, or an older player who I suppose if we were doing this completely holistically, I could have come up with a bunch of players who are out of contract in the summer and see if there's anyone interesting there. Maybe there is. I don't know.
We don't fully understand the profiles yet that they're looking for. I know sometimes people ask me on Twitter, who would you like them to sign? I rarely answer with anyone specific unless we know who they're going after, like a short list of players, because I just don't think we know.
Yeah.
We just don't know what scouts are looking for, what Amorim wants quite yet. Yeah. I'm not a tactico. I don't pretend to be.
No, to round this out, I mean, the speculation about tell in the last few days. I mean, obviously Tottenham have put in a very large offer to Bayern. He's not regularly in the Bayern side and definitely not scoring. He was a brilliant youth prospect. Yeah, brilliant that everybody in Europe knew about, and Bayern got him from Rennes. And it was seen as a big coup at the time. They are keen to cut his losses. The idea that he would transplant from Bayern in the Bundesliga into the United side and suddenly start banging the goals in is ridiculous. Not that I'm saying anything bad about him, because I do think he's a really talented player, but I think it's ridiculous.
It's just the realistic view.
It's just not realistic to expect him to come in, take a position, score 15 goals in the second half of the season. And so I like Tottenham's bid feels like the kind of thing we would have done 2 years ago. It feels too much for the player.
That's what I thought. I mean, 60 million euros on a distressed asset, firstly. Yes, you're paying for potential. Yes, Tottenham have targeted young players, but that's a club who, like United, have had a disastrous season, who are 2 positions below us, despite how bad our season has been. Yes, they're favourites for the Europa League, apparently. But yeah, for me, a loan plus option to buy is the move. You get to look at him. If you genuinely believe that he has a future at the club long-term, any player you want to look at, that makes sense. But I don't think you can do an obligation just with the position the club's in. A two minute highlight comp is great. I prefer the comps where it shows everything, all their actions and the things that they don't do well, areas to work on, because Premier League's not easy.
No. And the Bundesliga's tax is real, except for Erling Haaland. All right. We'll leave it there. That's a run through of what we think their squad evolution looks like. I think they will end up running down the strategy of younger players, as I've said before, and it'll be just really interesting to see if they come up with some names that we hadn't thought of before, and whether they can execute on the kind of deals that make the Patrick Dorgu one look like it's repeatable, high potential young player.
Do you think he's the only signing, if you had to say now?
This winter? Yeah, I'd suspect so, yeah. I think the rest will be outgoing.
And we didn't include players that might get promoted from the youth team either, because that's a bit it's a bit of a crapshoot. Nobody would have expected Kokonki to be first up. So I didn't sort of factor that stuff in. But that also has room.
I listed a whole bunch that I'm interested in, right? Who are performing. Biancheri, Lacey, Lassalle, Ibrahimov, Ennis, Fitzgerald, Fletcher, Wheatley, Gore, who's just come back from injury. I think he'll be off to another club.
He's gone to Rotherham.
Yeah.
Rotherham last night,
but I wouldn't be surprised in the summer either.
Yeah.
Ely Harrison, the goalkeeper, really highly thought, could he be the third keeper next season?
Yeah, I even think he has a chance to be the second, being that they recalled him to send him probably somewhere better.
Yeah, Kukoni, and then Kone, of course, who I think he's too raw right now. And that'd be interesting whether they have a development path. But yeah, I mean, tons of talent. I'd probably forgot some players. Aidan Heaven as well.
Look at Ethan Wheatley. I really like his loan to Walsall. I think it's the right sort of fit for, I think we've got one thing we're actually also got to get better at is loaning players into right situations. We actually did that with Alvaro and we sent him to Preston. I'm curious to see if we just see more of that with Kone, if he goes on loan next season.
Well, this is the flip side of buying sensibly. You got to sell well as well, and
loan to develop and then sell if they're not first teamers. Chelsea
and Manchester City have a legitimate fourth income stream from selling young players, and United do not. All right, Adam.
Multi-club model. Thanks, mate.
Good to see you again, listeners, viewers, wherever you are. We'll catch you next time. Bye now.